Yeah, my father is a minister and he's not doing well right now. He's trying to recover. But when I told him that I was going to interview today, he said, "You tell Dr. Paul that I commend him for his witness in his testimony. He thought that the way you handled matters of faith in the public square was a great example. That you weren't using it as some kind of gimmick, but you practiced what you preach. You didn't call names or resort to lies. You just told the truth and you did it consistently through the years." And so he wanted to pass that message along, that you're a great example of being a good Christian witness.
That's very nice. Thank him for me.
And the reason I wanted to have you on was the topic of nihilism. You talked about that in your Young Americans for Liberty speech, and I thought, that's interesting. You don't really hear politicians talking about, not that you're a politician anymore, but you don't really hear people in the political sphere talking about nihilism. And I don't remember you even mentioning nihilism too much in your original campaigns, but I think you've touched on something that is at the heart of where we're at culturally right now, which is this idea that truth is not real, right?
That's right. And as I think about it more and more, it really brings things together because if you're nihilistic, say in economics or even the monetary system, there's good and bad there, but it's also, the evil that comes in is when people do what they have done, with the Federal Reserve, and it's owned by a few people. It's used to fight wars and used just for special interests. It's used to transfer wealth from the middle class to the wealthy. And a lot of people would say, and this was certainly the attitude that was stronger when I went to Congress in '76. They said, "What are you talking about? This Federal Reserve all the time and stuff." But of course, it was that issue that came about for, at the end of Bretton Woods in 1971. But I think I can, in my own mind at least, there's a relationship, whether it's an economic policy or a social policy or a spiritual policy. But, I think so. I think the way it's handled, it is something I think a lot about as a delivery of a message that is every bit as important as the message itself, because you can turn people off as fast as you can get them interested if you don't do it right. If you're domineering and authoritarian, saying, "I don't know why you think that way. That doesn't make any sense to me." That's not the way to get a convert or just somebody interested. That's why I delight when I meet somebody that I consider, he or she might consider themselves, progressive Democrats, and with a lot of compassionate. So their views won't be totally like mine, but they would be that way and agree on civil liberties and on the war issue. And I think bringing things together, as long as there's an acceptance that that you can work things out and recognize the real damage. And in Washington, I recognize the people who really, really were nihilistic and they weren't nice people. And some of them had, and matter of fact, many of them who make it to the top tier in congressional leadership are that way because they have to be wheelers and dealers. They have to trade votes and trade money and raise money, and they have no thought about, a higher law or higher principles of, the law that is eventually is individual, and it isn't it isn't dictated by even a single minister or by a professor or by your schools or whatever, and certainly not the legislative bodies, because it boils down, and I think this is fascinating and makes life very, very interesting, and that is the old-fashioned belief that people have free will and they can make a difference, and that's the way the world works. Sometimes people might wonder, well, why was it made this way? It doesn't make any sense. There's so many problems in the world. But it turns out that the more you understand that, the more you understand that there are reasons for that. And the understanding of free will, I think, is so important because the nihilism is the one that is the most difficult to undermine, and some of them are just they're sort of a mixed bag. They're nihilistic, even though their image is, and they pretend that they're not nihilistic. What they want to do is transfer the spirit of a higher law into what they're doing, and they're actually endorsing policies that are nihilistic. That's sort of like taking the monetaristic issue and saying, well, money is good to help the people, and we need to be helpful to people, and we need to be progressive. And they attach that to a monetary system, which is really nihilistic because it's total consumption of liberty and wealth. And so then you get involved with total ignorance too, that comes along. But there are so many, that are Nietzschean in the sense that there's no way nobody can know the truth. And that is such a devastating issue. And who knows the truth? We have to follow the people who know the truth. It isn't so much that one individual would know the truth. It's the fact that truth does exist and that there's something to strive for. So I work on the assumption that there will never be, that mankind is never going to all of a sudden see a perfect society that endorses the principle of a higher law, or a society that everybody agrees that everything is nihilistic, and that there is no truth. But the people who don't believe there's a truth, they don't even strive. Why would they strive for it? Why would they want to even talk to somebody who happens to believe in a spirituality connected to a higher law? It devised to the point where all effort to change the country, the world, or whatever should be voluntary. And if you want to promote the principles you believe in, it should be done through voluntarism. It should be done by setting examples. I've said many times on my debates on the presidential campaign is that you should set, because I was highly criticized for the foreign policy. I said, well, you don't have the authority and you don't have the ability to go all of a sudden and eliminate the violations of civil liberties in China. But it might be that if we set a good standard and deal with the violation of civil liberties here in this country, maybe there will be somebody in China someplace say, this capitalism and this freedom and property and voluntarism sounds like a pretty good idea. So it's a big thing that is the approach. But nihilists, they're not interested. They've made up their mind. There is no such thing. So let's not even pretend, unless it serves the benefit of our beliefs in nihilism. Then they will pretend that like going to war. Oh, we go to war, which is nihilistic. We go to war because we're spreading democracy, and we're spreading our Constitution. We're protecting our liberties, and which is total nonsense. You go to an illegal, immoral, unconstitutional war, for those reasons, but they pretend, and that's a little sorting out you have to do.